Welcome to episode 51 of New Indian Woman podcast, airing first in early October 2021. And I'm your host, Krishna. In today's episode, I'm happy to welcome Poonam Bir Kasturi. Poonam runs this organization, Dailydump, in Bangalore. This organization's products are all about composting at home as an individual or as a community. So, what's special, you may wonder? Today, all of us have at least heard about the concept of composting. Well, she started this firm many years ago, and this is the 15th anniversary of Daily Dump, and she has won several awards. Her organization has 10,000 plus customers in Bangalore itself, 10,000 plus people who chose to do home composting, not to send waste to the landfills. I had a challenge when I decided to invite her for this podcast. Do I invite her as someone who can inspire us? Or do I invite her as an expert on a topic? Then I decided not to spend too much time thinking about it. So today she is here to do both, to inspire and also to guide us. In the interest of time, I will not repeat the questions she has already answered in the wonderful FAQ section of Daily Dump's website. It's very clear, very visual, very helpful. You will find the link of the FAQ in the show notes. So we will focus on other things in this episode. Welcome, Poonam. It's such a pleasure to have you in this episode.
Thank you so much, Krishna. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited.
I have been an admirer, Poonam, and I've been a daily dump user. Harvesting compost, if somebody had told me that it brings so much happiness,
Right.
I wouldn't have believed. But I remember the first time I harvested, and every time I harvest compost, it brings so much pleasure. Thank you for that.
Thank you to nature. It's such a natural system. And like you, when I first discovered composting, I was like blown away. I said, my God, why don't more people know about this magic? And I
Right.
think that was what inspired me to get started.
I will start with asking you to give an introduction to our listeners, focusing on what you do now. Primary roles that demand most of your attention across personal and professional, and your passion projects, hobbies, etc. We would like to know more about you.
My husband was just telling me yesterday, Poonam, you spend too much time working. And I don't know. When somebody asks me a question, where do you divide your time? It all seems to be like one big chunk.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hardly make out the differences because it's one thing or the other thing, all related to work,
Hmm.
and it's work, 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 and more work. I have a very supportive husband,
Hmm.
so I really don't have to look at the kitchen and things like that.
Hmm.
He's a better cook than I am, and
Hmm.
so he manages most of the house seriously. And so my interest is to try and make the organization itself capable of handling itself, and that's
Hmm.
where currently my time is focused on. Because when we grew, right, as Daily Dump,
Hmm.
we didn't we grew very organically. It was very word of mouth, and we have actually 75,000 families,
Hmm.
not 10,000.
Oh,
75,000 families, unique families all over the country who use our products. And the interesting thing is, till now, we were actually about three people doing this whole
okay.
thing.
Okay.
So now
Okay.
we're building an organization, and I
Hmm.
want to hand over the organization by the end of this financial year,
Hmm.
to younger people, and I will step back and do just a mentorship role. So currently my time is just involved in trying to put the processes so that it will help them be able to do this.
So it is some kind of preparation for letting go.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I think 15 years we've done what we had to do. We wanted to make home composting a household term, a household understanding in India, and we've achieved that.
True, absolutely true.
Mhm.
I'll come to this part in a bit about how composting is not something about just keeping one waste bin in some corner, but there is aesthetics, there is beauty, everything.
Yeah,
So, Poonam, I'm very curious. I did some research,
yeah.
and that is where I found this 10,000 plus, which is wrong. I understand. I realized that you have a design background
Yes.
and you were a founding faculty member of the reputed Shrishti School,
Yes.
you could have started any business, worked on designing any product, and you chose this very difficult path.
Uh, um,
What led you to that?
I, I think it's a combination of things. I come from a family where my dad was a designer, and he was a very passionate visionary of the idea of um, finding your own voice
Hmm.
and taking on things that perhaps make sense in the larger systemic understanding of the on the world that we live in. And what happened was that while I was researching, and I got very interested in ecology and how design and ecology can intersect.
Hmm.
And when we were in college, we read a lot about everybody in colleges thinks about the brave new world, not the world that they are entering,
Right.
and our images and our ideas were all colored by this vision of people like Buckminster Fuller, people like Charles Handy, people like the guy who read the Good Earth, the Whole Earth catalog, and
Hmm.
even in India by the Gandhian movement, by the ideas of self sufficiency
Hmm. Hmm.
and interdependency with the earth. So I think you get impacted and informed by these ideas, and somewhere there is a desire to do something that aligns with a deep sense of what you think will work, will make things a little better.
Yeah, but still composting, because I remember some say 20 years back nobody was talking about it,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
at least it was not popular. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
not the in thing to say that I am a champion of sustainable living and
Yes,
I do
yes,
composting was not
yes.
the most fashionable thing to say.
Yes, no, it was not. I think, even now, I remember I used to single-handedly, put this one composter in the boot of my car, and I bought a yellow car just because I wanted the brand to be noticed on the roads, and it had the Dailydump logo and the phone number.
Hmm.
And I would traverse all across Bangalore to anybody, trying to convince them Rotary Club, Women's Club, Nature Club, uh, Women's Kitty Party. I've gone everywhere.
So, but what drove you? See, what I'm trying to say is
Yeah,
sustainable living, there could have been many other options if you are driven by that. I'm saying there are so many ways in which that can be achieved. People talk about materials used in building construction,
right,
decor and
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So, this particular aspect of it and
yeah,
how it can influence the
yeah.
environment in a very simple but powerful way.
You're asking me an interesting question because when I ask myself, not I ask, I intuit.
Hmm.
There's a part of me that intuits that what I see, right, as a change. I'm not convinced. I'm not. Some people are very erudite when it comes to articulating their thought processes. I feel I work a lot on intuition. I see patterns. I
Hmm.
can recognize patterns, and when I see patterns in how society works, right, I
Hmm.
intuit that there are some things that seem like they're really great projects and they will make a big change, but they don't.
Yeah.
And I
True.
intuit that sometimes you need to insert a lever in a very strategic place in the system,
Right.
and I feel the combination of there is a is both behavior building culture, because I think when you build culture, right, and change people's belief systems,
Right.
then there is a change. But when you try and impose something from top down, it doesn't work. Systems don't
Correct.
change like that.
Correct.
So somehow I intuit, I understand patterns, understand structures. I may not fully articulate them like maybe somebody who goes to who has those skills can do it. But I
Right.
sense them. I can deeply sense them, and I respond to that.
And that explains because Dailydump is not about slogans and eye catchy words and all that. And I
Yeah.
feel that picture, and I'm going to put that very clearly in the show notes as well as in all the promo. I know you have a lot of options now in plastic in bigger
Right. Right.
sizes, but I
Right.
remember the first ones and which
Yes.
still continue
Yeah.
is using terracotta,
Yes.
the
Yes.
clay.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I feel that aesthetics around that
Mm.
played a huge role because if we understand Bangalore,
Yes.
Around the same 15-year period is when apartments just started cropping up everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
And you kind of broke it in terms of, oh, I am in an apartment, I cannot be doing composting.
Yeah.
Where I remember the early FAQs will talk about how it will not stink, you can keep
Yeah.
it in the balcony, you
Yeah.
can manage it without worms, etc.
Right.
But this aesthetics around the dustbin,
Yeah.
which was unheard of.
Yeah. No, I think that would comes from my design background. The ability, because you have been trained to understand that there is an intersection between culture, aesthetics, archetype forms, and how it impacts the perception of your ideas of beauty. You can change perceptions through form and material.
And that's where I feel women doing design,
Yeah.
if it was a man designing a compost, it would not have looked so beautiful. I haven't done any research.
I agree. I agree. The man would want lots more features.
Right. I know how the top of it looks like a frill on top
Yes.
actually. And it's so pretty. The whole concept of using a dustbin, I'm saying,
Yeah.
I know the context here is wet waste,
Yeah.
but it is something which not to be seen, to be hidden, where
Yes.
you brought it out.
Yeah.
Could have been a small terracotta bucket kind of a thing
Correct.
under the kitchen slab, but you
Correct.
brought it out.
Correct. Maybe see Krishna, you're seeing the value of that, those very important but very subtle decisions, design
Yeah.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But most people don't, and that's the power of, I think, Daily Dump. It is
Hmm.
so understated that we're not a threat. When
Correct.
you're not a threat, the chances of you being adopted are higher.
Correct.
And
True.
that was also part of what I sense around me. When you
Hmm.
become, when you use power to change, there's a cost to that. It doesn't endure.
Right.
You're subjected to lots of winds
Hmm.
and turbulence. But when you're small and you're understated, you can go like a virus. It's literally like a virus then.
Did you feel hesitant at the start? Because we are talking about era before Facebook, era before you
Yeah, yeah,
advertise
yeah.
without spending money and all that
Yeah.
was not possible. What were the challenges? I am asking this question
Mm,
the context of women listeners. Many of us would have ideas,
right.
but translating that into execution, we feel inferior, less
Yes,
confident
yes,
about the
yes.
ability to.
I still feel, I still feel inferior. I
Okay,
still feel
I think
not
maybe I should
confident.
edit this part out. No, but what I'm trying to say is that it requires courage to
Yeah,
overcome that additional gravity that pulls you down,
yeah.
whether it is at inferiority, lack of confidence, etc. But you have. So, could you just go back to that young Poonam who decided, no, I will try this out?
So, the interesting thing is most people don't realize that I started this at 44.
Hmm.
So, Pune was not really young at 44.
To start a new business, I
Yeah,
see, actually, there are two things.
yeah,
At 20 plus
yeah.
is a different kind of young.
Yes,
At
yes.
44 is a different kind of young because you feel, you feel, oh, is it too late? Am I too,
Yeah, yeah,
like the number of additional
yeah,
constraints you
yeah,
face is huge.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I agree. I agree. But I feel that I started at the right time because I had enough maturity not to get phased out. At that time, I had already done my, setting up Shrishti with the team, and I had done some other businesses also before that. So
Hmm.
I was done with that in the sense I was not out to prove a point. I was not, none of that was really on the agenda. I was really interested to see whether this idea that I had deep in the sense, the sense in the pit of my stomach that this would work was so strong.
Hmm.
And I could feel it. I could feel it. I can feel it in my body. It was like that.
Yeah.
And so I was not scared because I knew that if
Right.
it failed also, it doesn't really matter.
Right. And I like that part because in your 20s and 30s, how others would judge me,
Correct.
whether I should be successful, all those things.
Correct. Matter.
Maybe at 40 plus, you can choose to ignore them earlier, but
Yes.
at 40 plus, you
It's easier.
somehow, it's
Yeah.
easier. Yeah,
It's
good.
easier. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's why I think Daily Dump worked because I was at the right time. It came to me at the right time. I'm telling you, sometimes when I look at it, I feel Daily Dump came to me. I didn't make Daily Dump. Daily Dump has a life of its own.
And it brought in many things. It is just not about composting part alone.
Yeah.
I see there are three major components here. Okay, composting is a primary thing. Then
Right.
there is the thing about using terracotta, and
Yeah.
it is a reusable kind of a material.
Correct. Correct.
Then the third point is it is a livelihood option for the people who are making it, because the
Right.
terracotta itself is
Right.
use of it is coming down. So it was
Right.
like finding an alternate kind of option for those people.
Right.
I'm sure the number of people involved may be less, but still it made a difference for
Yeah.
some people.
No, there are lots of people involved, in fact, and because it's viral, the interesting things is a lot of other potters have started making it themselves. We have documented evidence of it,
Hmm.
and all across the world. It's not only here in India,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so that's again a big impact. And when you look at it, you can't quantify it. I can't create a balance sheet out of it. I can't get funding from it, but it is valuable.
Absolutely
Yeah.
true. You have influenced this thinking around waste in several ways.
Yeah.
First of all, it is like, okay, out of sight, out of mind kind of an issue,
Yeah.
but making people understand that I'm part of the problem,
Yeah.
and not to think of, okay, why should I alone change? Waste is a responsibility of government or the apartment maintenance team or something, but somewhere having agency. So I somehow feel it is relevant in the context of new Indian woman, because the agency, this particular handling of waste, I feel in a household, whether it is right or wrong, today it is aligned with a woman's responsibility,
Yes.
and a woman having an agency in that choice and to take a decision to do composting
Right.
and involving the rest of the family. I feel you is somebody who has influenced this a lot.
Mhm.
And you talk about that each one of us should send only 10 percentage of waste outside our house.
Yeah.
So, in this context, what would you like to tell the women audience of this podcast? Because everywhere Daily Dump may not be available. And I would want you to touch upon the wet waste as well as on the dry leaf,
Right.
the practice of burning that is still prevalent.
Yeah.
And we have audiences abroad across India in small towns as well. So, if you could just talk about that part, it will be helpful.
Yeah, I think that, like you say, right, women naturally have a lot of agency because they influence families and they have a certain long term kind of thinking mindset. And I think that they directly influence definitely their children, and children are our next generation. What I find is happening is that waste is still a symptom. When we say throw 10% out, the interesting thing is you can throw 10% out depending on the way you eat, the way you drink,
Hmm.
the way you live. Yeah. And it
Hmm.
directly impacts. See, when I say throw 10% out, means I'm going to buy less chips,
Hmm.
I'm going to buy less packaged food.
Hmm.
What we're not realizing is that on one hand, we want our independence, but we've not created, which is good. I mean, you want free time. You don't want to sit and make chips every week for your children. It is a chore for women to do that. But
Right.
what we've not found alternatively as business options is that there are local cooperatives or local safe, healthy spaces which would produce this for local communities. We've
Correct.
gone the route of we want big companies to use economies of scale, do centralized production, and churn out this material that we want to consume from a central point or two, three central points in the country.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that comes with packaging, that comes with additive material put into the food, which is not good for us.
Right.
And here I feel is a business opportunity that is not at all explored as a way of doing business, right?
Hmm.
So the waste is again just a symptom. When I say 10%, actually what we are saying is everybody who's working in the space, whether they're working with safe food, whether they're working with farmer sovereignty, whether they're working with soil health, whether they're working for climate change,
Hmm.
we are all saying the same thing. We're discovering that what we eat matters, how we
True.
live matters. We need to have free time, we need to have good access to living space, healthy air, healthy water, and all of that is at risk right now because we are not able to think differently.
Right. Right now, the only solution seems to be driven by the large corporations.
Unfortunately, because they seem to have a argument that says, see, I'm giving you your free time,
Hmm.
giving you something off the shelf which you can feed your children,
Hmm.
and then you can have a free life.
Yeah, but the cost of it is much more than the cost put on the label of the packet.
No, and it's put in as either you have this free time or you have bad food. I'm saying
Hmm.
it doesn't need to compute like that. You can
Correct.
have free time and you can have safe food. Why don't we work for that?
True. So, what do you suggest for the woman listener as the next steps, both at an individual and at a community level? What options are there?
On Instagram you'll see lots of women. In fact, these are women run businesses more than men run businesses, interestingly.
Hmm.
They make like healthy food snacks, like they'll make dips and healthy breakfast mueslis or millet things and all that. And
Hmm.
they're very expensive.
Right.
So how do we bring that cost down and still have this available? I think those women's skills, I don't know how we use them. Second is, how do we empower women across urban spaces to be able to get into businesses which look after natural resources, local natural resources, distributed natural resources, and turn that into a viable business model.
Hmm.
And by viable, I mean small, but not necessarily like the MNC 50% growth and 25% growth kind of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like if you look at Daily Dump, we don't grow at those rates.
Right.
Yeah, but we are viable. We pay very good salaries.
Hmm.
We pay a decent wage. We stand on our own feet. We are not burning somebody else's money,
Right.
which of course is the good thing to do according to the business guys. But I still haven't figured that bit out. I still can't understand how you can burn somebody's money and it doesn't bother you.
Hmm.
Maybe that's where my non-exposure to the business world is.
Right.
So yeah, I think there's a lot to be done.
And it's interesting. My sustainability journey
Yeah,
started with composting.
right.
Like what you said,
Yeah,
when you examine composting, then you start looking at, okay, the waste you generate. Then you look at what you consume. Then
right,
you look at, okay, if I have to consume this,
right.
and if I do not have the time, what
Yeah,
are the alternate ways in which I can meet what I want to do
correct.
in terms of saving time, plus at the same time, make sure there is healthy options for the family. So
Right,
in that process, we look at other women run, which is what is available,
right.
women run options around people who are making snacks.
Yeah,
And so you're reducing the waste. If that is your starting point also,
yeah,
you touch upon several of these areas.
yeah, yeah.
So whether you do it as an individual or as a community doesn't matter, but the point is to start somewhere. Correct. I would try to summarize that as a learning from what you were explaining.
Yeah, yeah. I think you should remember that you have the power of agency.
Right.
Whatever you do is worth it. I mean, what the noise outside is, the world is, every newspaper you read in the morning, it feels like, my God, the world is crumbling around me.
Correct.
And yet you have to get up and you have to say, yes, I am going to do this. Because if you don't do that, I just feel that it erodes you over time.
True.
You don't need to do that to yourself.
And at the same time, when you talk about getting up and doing something, I
Right.
want to touch upon this part because, in the context of daily dump, also, I remember the focus was not just in selling compost units, but educating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember so many places I've gone to
Yeah.
where there will be somebody selling daily dump products, but also explaining,
Right.
also sharing a handful of compost, make us touch and feel it and smell
Right.
it and all that
Right.
to change that notion that it stings, etc.
Right. Right.
And the focus was also in terms of service.
Yes.
If you do not know how to manage your compost, we will send somebody. This was the era when you had people coming for service only for your
Yes.
water, aqua guard equivalent, or
Yeah.
fridge or something. So
Yes.
there was somebody who would service the compost
Yeah.
and help you
Yeah.
learn. And this was a unique concept. So
Yeah.
here, when you talk about starting and doing something,
Right.
I want to touch upon this part. Did you upfront plan on all this? I'm
Yes.
asking this because as women,
Yeah.
many of us, when we are not ready to start till the whole picture is very clear, because we are like, we feel, what if I fail here? Or what if that happens? What are your thoughts on this?
I think again, I must say that the design education helps a lot because designers are trained to deal with ambiguity.
Hmm.
They are very comfortable. I am very, very comfortable with ambiguity. At every stage of a project, right now, I'm working on some exploration on how to reduce the plastic bag in India. At
Hmm.
every stage, I'm changing my brief or I'm changing my goalpost because I feel that you as a designer know that if you put a process in place and if you're
Hmm.
thinking through and using the process, then the solution is very emergent.
Hmm.
You don't have a fix on it,
Correct.
and you're very comfortable with that. Whereas
Hmm.
if you're very trained to do a lot of Excel sheet work, no,
Hmm. Hmm.
I think you have a very predetermined kind of outcome focus.
Hmm.
So that can be quite debilitating because I think if you want to do this kind of work, is that then you get scared because you want to know the outcome and you don't know the outcome, and
Hmm.
then you start getting agitated.
True.
Whereas we are trained to say, yeah, you don't know the outcome, very good for you.
Okay. So one is getting trained on that. Also, is the fact that one need not know everything to start. I'm saying that
Yes,
much we
yes,
should
yes,
understand,
yes.
right?
But you never know everything to start. I mean,
True.
that's a fact, right?
Correct. No, but that is the most popular excuse.
But
I
you never know everything ever.
That is true. Coming to the more nitty gritties of it, what is your typical day like when people listen to some interview where somebody is talking about, I would like to look at the plastic bag situation across India?
Hmm.
You feel somewhere that person is on a pedestal, okay?
Oh
That
no.
person does not have to deal with this situation of the gas cylinder running out or motor not working and
Yeah,
the daily
yeah.
challenges of life. You somehow feel somebody else does everything for them and they are generally solving problems across the country.
No, that's a very valid point. And I think that what I found across even I used to have questions like that, and I completely understand where that is coming from. You feel those people are living in rarefied spaces.
True.
Yeah, yeah. But I think each one has their own unique fix,
Hmm.
and I think each one's context, right, defines that unique fix. And in my context, my unique fix is that I have a very supportive husband.
Hmm.
I mean, every woman looks at him and says, "My God, why could not I have that husband?" Because he cooks beautifully. He's interested in the house.
Huh.
He takes away a lot of my chores from my plate. I don't even know. I don't do them. Okay, it's
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
simple as that. Like, and so coming back to the gas cylinder thing, yes, I do not fix the gas cylinder in my house.
Hmm.
I do not fix the, the shopping in my house because he loves shopping, and
Hmm.
but I have enough time to focus on my work. My child is not with me anymore. He's 33. He lives in New Zealand, so there's no child issue to
Hmm.
be or and I think that most people have a lot more to do or a lot more responsibilities than I personally have. But I
Hmm.
do have a very serious health condition,
Hmm.
and I don't have kidneys. My kidneys don't work. So
Hmm.
I have a regimen around my 4 times dialysis, peritoneal dialysis I do.
Hmm.
So that's quite a thing to have, and you have to manage your work around it. I do take off some time for meditation. I take off some time for reading every day,
Hmm.
and I cook occasionally. I make
Hmm.
something that maybe the family like.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't have small children. Small children can pay is a big time sink.
I somehow feel there are challenges throughout. The
Mm.
nature, the color, size of it, intensity of it changes. And we cannot wait for all the waves to stop to leave the beach or
Mm.
to start our business or what we want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So if the listeners are going to say, oh, I don't have a husband like that, so that is the reason why. So that is why I'm adding this line, the challenges
Yeah,
differ, right? So we will have to adapt to our scenarios and figure out what we can do.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, I think that. But Krishna, on this point, I would be on the side of that other person who says, "Damn it, I don't have a husband like her. I can't do this." Because I know how hard it is, right? You and me know how
True.
hard it is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah,
but what I'm trying to say is that you may not set out to influence a city's overall behavior or impacting 75,000 families like you have done,
mm,
but we can start somewhere. And for that, we have to acknowledge, okay, yeah, these are the challenges. And maybe not now, maybe 5 years from now, I can do something. And during that
yeah.
time, what we can do. So
Yeah.
there is that power of looking at it from that angle is what I was trying to say.
I agree, and also I think that some of the things, while you have a lot of pressure on you, there are some battles you should choose not to fight.
Correct.
I feel that's the other thing that helps me cope. Like
Hmm.
I can be, very hundred other things to do. Be house proud or be. Women take on all these things, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes they take it on just because they feel that this is an ideal woman or ideal
Or
person that they want to
superwoman.
be.
Yeah.
Yes, superwoman. And sometimes you don't need it. Like I have no compunctions telling people I can't cook.
Yeah.
But
I
I
love
find
you
a lot
saying that
of a
actually.
lot of people, women hesitate to say that, because they feel they're copping out, or they're uh, somebody's going to judge them on that.
Right. And their identity is linked to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
Okay.
cook. I can't. There are lots of womanly things I don't do.
Hmm.
Not because I don't want to do them. Not because I don't think they're important. Not at all. It's
Yeah.
just that I'm not skilled at it.
And it is okay to say it aloud. No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Any specific time management challenges or things like that that you have tried which worked? Or how do you keep yourself motivated on those bad days?
See, motivation. In fact, my team was asking me yesterday. She said, "They said, how are you motivated?" I said, "Motivation has never been my problem because I don't use somebody else's yardstick.
Hmm.
I've never. I mean, that problem I've never had.
Hmm.
I've always looked inside and said, okay, am I doing enough? Should I do more? If I'm not capable of doing this, I accept it. Saying I'm not. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a businesswoman. I'm not many things,
Right.
and I'm comfortable with that.
Wonderful. Many people have said many things that they do motivating themselves. This is a completely different take.
Mm.
Right, right. Absolutely. Before we end, I would like to request, is there something you want to share with a message, so to speak, with all the people out there listening to this podcast?
I think everybody's unique. I think everybody's world is their own world. And I think the minute you realize that you're the only you that exists, right? And you can seriously then stop worrying about what people think about you, whether you should, pull yourself down or whether you should pull yourself up. Both are not necessary. I think what I've really enjoyed life is when I've lived just mainly for the moment.
Hmm,
And that's a different feeling, and I feel that feeling is something that's accessible to everybody.
true. It requires a very conscious choice
Yeah,
and cultivating of that thought process.
yeah, and it's irrespective of what your circumstances are, you can still feel at peace with everything that's around you.
That's a wonderful message to share.
Mm.
So, thank you so much.
Krishna, I think that it was really nice talking to you. I mean, when you're so involved in work, you hardly get time to reflect, and this was such a reflective exercise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And
Yeah.
someday I hope to come and visit
Absolutely,
you.
you please come
Yeah,
to our experience center. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
definitely. Thank you so much, Poonam.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.
With that, we wind up this episode. Do visit my website, thenewindianwoman.com, for related blogs on this topic. Of course, I would love to hear from you. You could rate or leave a comment in your podcast app or write to me at krishna@thenewindianwoman.com. Remember, you are what you want to be, and the time starts now.